It was like finding out the neighborhood bully was really a weak kid in a fake muscle costume. During my Army time, I'd learned that many groups forget to renew their business papers every few years, turning them into weak things with no real standing. Sarah explained that homeowners can fight the power of badly set up HOAs and maybe cancel all their actions. She'd seen cases where people got years of fees back because their HOA forgot one form. But here's where it gets exciting. While checking their business status, we found Vivian had made money herself from my land sale. Her yard company, Ashworth Aesthetics, got a $180,000 pretty-up contract from the HOA the same month they took my property. She'd basically paid herself with money from selling my family stuff. It was like watching someone rob a bank and then charge the bank for safety advice. Sarah filed a paper to throw out all HOA actions because of their wrong business status. The courtroom was full when Vivian's $800 per hour lawyer had to explain why his client was basically a bad group pretending to be a homeowners group. Watching him wiggle was better than TV, but Vivian wasn't giving up without a fight. She called a quick HOA meeting to approve all past stuff after the fact and rush through setup papers. Only 12 of 50 homeowners came. Most were away or just tired of her stuff. At 11 p.m., with a small group of her friends, she pushed through votes that normally need most residents. The smell of worry was stronger than the coffee they'd been drinking since 6 p.m. Vivian's voice had that high sound of someone who knows their world is falling, but won't say it. Days later, another paper server came to my door with a new lawsuit, this time for $1.2 million in punishment money. She claimed my silly legal fights were bothering her and threatened to take my remaining 700 acres to pay. The woman had more guts than a first-time skyjumper, but her legal spot was weaker than wet paper. Standing on my porch reading those papers while my grandpa's wind chimes played their usual tune, I realized Vivian had just made a big mistake. In her panic to stop me, she'd gone to a level that would bring big checks on her whole thing. The sound of those chimes reminded me of something Grandpa used to say: when your enemy is making mistakes, don't stop them. I was about to let Vivian dig her own hole as deep as she wanted. Vivian's worry was getting super high. Having failed to beat me with lawsuits, she turned on every homeowner in Willowmire Estates like a mean leader getting rid of possible rebels. Christmas. Lights left up past January 2nd. That'll be a $200 fine. Someone dared to plant tomatoes in their backyard. $500 penalty for wrong farm stuff. The woman was fining people for living their lives. Her best petty mean act came when she threatened to take elderly Margaret Clearwater's home over $45 in late fees. Margaret, a retired third-grade teacher whose husband died of cancer last year, had been struggling to keep up with HOA stuff while sad. Vivian's answer: sadness doesn't excuse money problems. That's when the neighborhood finally woke up. You can only poke a sleeping dog so many times before it bites back, and Willowmere people had had enough. Margaret started a private Facebook group called Willowmere Truth Tellers that grew from 5 members to 43 in 2 weeks. The scary stories they shared could fill a spooky book. Navy vet Tom Bridgewater, whose perfect lawn had gotten him 3 complaints for being too same, became my surprise friend. During a chance meet at the hardware store where we were both buying security cameras, he pulled me aside and said, "That woman's crazier than a weird sandwich, son. What can we do to stop her?" I started setting up Know Your Rights talks at the local library, sharing everything Sarah and I had learned about HOA rules. The first meeting drew 8 curious neighbors. The second drew 22. By the third, we had no seats left with people taking notes like their lives depended on it, which with Vivian's growing meanness, they probably did. During one of these talks, Margaret shared a big surprise that changed everything. While cleaning out her late husband's papers, she'd found the original HOA rules from 1965 hidden in their attic like treasure. Her husband had been on the first setup group, and he'd kept everything. The old yellow pages had words that made me happy. The rules clearly said no buying land beyond the original 50 spots. Vivian's buy of my property didn't just break state rules. It broke the HOA's own starting papers. She'd done what lawyers call acts beyond power, meaning she'd gone way over her legal limits like a mayor trying to start a war with another country. Sarah explained that when groups act beyond their powers, those acts are like they never happened. It was as if Vivian had been playing chess while everyone else played checkers. Except she'd been moving pieces wrong the whole time, but Margaret wasn't done with big hits. Tom's check into the community pool money fund showed $89,000 missing over 3 years. The money had been going straight to Ashworth Aesthetics for work that was either never done or way overpriced. While people paid more fees for pool fixes, Vivian was funding her own yard business with their money. The pool itself showed the story. Green stuff thick enough to walk on, broken clean systems, and diving boards held with tape and hopes. The smell of clean chemical had been replaced by yucky still water that made you sick from far away. Yet somehow Vivian's company had billed $30,000 for top care just last year. When asked at the next neighborhood meeting, Vivian's answer was pure worry dressed as power. She hired 2 guards to keep order, set votes during work hours when most couldn't come, and threatened lawsuits against anyone spreading lies about HOA money. The meeting was like watching a mean rule fall apart live. Vivian stood at the front, her voice getting higher with each question, while mad homeowners asked for answers she couldn't give. The guards looked more uneasy as they saw they were protecting a mean person from her own neighbors. "This is what happens when outside troublemakers come into our peaceful place," she said, pointing right at me. "Certain people can't accept that land changed hands legally." Margaret stood up, her teacher voice cutting through the mess like a sharp knife. "Vivian, I've lived here longer than you've been alive. This isn't about outside trouble. This is about a bored person stealing from her own neighbors." The clapping that followed shook the windows. Watching Vivian's face fall as her own people turned against her was sweeter than my grandma's apple pie. Her empire of small meanness was finally breaking, and the sound was great. Sarah called me at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. That changed everything. Her voice was shaking with excitement as she said, "Ezra, you need to sit down for this. I found something that makes Vivian's worst dream look nice." She'd been looking through the original 1960s build records when she found a legal detail that would make lawyers happy. When Willowmere Estates was first made, the original landowner, my grandpa's neighbor, had only sold the top rights to the build company. He'd kept ownership of everything underground: mineral rights, under access, and most important, base support rights. My grandpa had quietly bought those under rights in 1963 for $500, thinking the minerals might be worth something someday. What he'd really bought was the legal base under every big house in Willowmere Estates. All 50 homes were built on property that now belonged to me. Sarah explained it like this: "Imagine you own a house, but someone else owns the ground your bottom room sits in. That's exactly what happened here." Top rights and under rights are totally separate legal things, something I'd learned in an Army class in Colorado. The teacher had told us about cases where homeowners found their houses were built on land they didn't own below ground. The meaning hit me like a big train full of fairness. Could legally ask for the removal of every building on my under property. The guest cost for moving 50 fancy homes between $12 and $15 million, or the homeowners could buy the underrights from me at fair price, which our checker guessed at $45 million for the whole place. When Sarah told Vivian's legal team, the $800 per hour lawyer asked for a quick meeting that cost them $25,000 in one afternoon. I'm dodging big explosions in Eastern Europe serving my country when I get a call that makes me super mad. Some HOA lady named Vivian has legally sold my grandpa's ranch, 500 acres of great American land that's been in my family since 1892, the same land where my Purple Heart grandpa is buried, sold for super cheap while I'm fighting for freedom overseas. I come home to the sound of rocks crunching under workers' boots, watching strangers mark out my family graveyard. Vivian thought she'd stolen everything from a hurt vet who couldn't fight back. What she didn't know was that Grandpa left me one last gift in those old 1960s papers: legal ownership of the ground, under 50 fancy homes worth $47 million altogether. What would you do if you came home to find your family stuff stolen? Drop a flag emoji. Where are you watching from? Because this could happen to anyone, anywhere in America. This is how one vet turned an HOA land grab into the most expensive property lesson these thieves ever got. My name is Staff Sergeant Ezra Thornfield, and I'm a third-generation rancher who just spent 18 months keeping peace in Eastern Europe. While I was dodging bullets and missing my grandpa's funeral, some HOA vulture was circling my family land like a hungry bird. The Thornfield Ranch, 1,500 acres of rolling hills, clean pastures, and the clearest spring-fed lake this side of the Rocky Mountains. Grandpa built this place from nothing after World War II, using his GI Bill and Purple Heart money. Every fence post put in by rough hands that knew hard work. Every barn beam cut from our own trees. This wasn't just land. It was 3 generations of American blood, sweat, and tears. The ranch borders a fancy neighborhood called Willowmere Estates, lakefront big houses where tech bosses and rich kids pay $200,000 to $500,000 to live next to real America. These people have never done a day of honest work, but they sure complain about the smell of cows and the sound of roosters at dawn. I pull into my driveway after that awful flight from Germany, expecting to see my usual fields. Instead, I'm hit with the yucky smell of fresh paint marking old oak. Trees like they're doomed. Bright orange, sold signs poke into my family's dirt like knives. Workers with clipboards are mapping my land. Driving stakes through Grandpa's special rose garden, where the smell of smashed flowers now mixes with truck fuel. 100 acres gone. They say sold to the Willowmere HOA for $2.3 million. That's like stealing at $175 per acre for land worth at least $8,000. My bank account shows $247. My remaining 700 acres are suddenly under building rules that no one can explain. But here's what made me really angry. They fenced off our family graveyard. The sound of metal fence shaking in the wind around my grandpa's new grave still gives me bad dreams. That's when I meet Vivian Ashworth. Picture every bad HOA boss rolled into one perfect-looking person. Years old, drives a white Mercedes G-Wagon worth more than most people's yearly pay, and measures grass with a real ruler. This woman has filed 47 HOA complaints in the past year alone. Her victims probably just wanted to live quietly. She's standing in my driveway with a mean smile that could spoil milk. Military housing money doesn't cover property taxes, does it, soldier boy? She says, not even saying hi. She shoves fake papers at me, papers claiming tax problems that my bank records prove never happened. Your grandpa should have planned better. She keeps going, fixing her fancy sunglasses that cost more than my monthly. Fight pay. This is what happens when military families think they're above community duties. I'm standing there in my uniform, fresh off 18 months defending her freedom, and this bad person lectures me about being a good American. The funny part, burns like bad gas. Leave our property right now or I'll have you arrested for being here without permission, she threatens, calling what I think is her own sheriff. Here's my bad dream. Divorce lawyers and fees had left me with $247, the local lawyer, Vivian's golf buddy, who couldn't take my case because of conflicts. County office lost all original land. Papers. My bank said no record of auto tax payments I'd set up carefully. Standing there watching strangers mark my grandpa's grave, I made a quiet promise. Vivian had no idea who she was messing with, but something about Grandpa's smart smile in his old photos suggested he'd left me more than just land. Army training teaches waiting, planning, and finding weak spots in enemies. She was about to learn why you never mess with a combat vet's family history. Vivian wasn't happy with just stealing my land. She wanted to ruin my good name, too. Within 48 hours of our first meeting, She filed a stay-away order, saying I'd threatened her with army-style harm. Total lie. But the local judge approved it without hearing me. Suddenly, I'm banned from half my own area. But that was just the start. She put in strong security cameras pointed at my leftover land, recording me like I was a bad guy. Then came posts on the neighborhood app about angry vet behavior and worrying PTSD moments. The woman was making a story, painting me as the scary outsider threatening their perfect neighborhood. Her best part was holding safety meetings about bad people in the area. The smell of her pricey perfume couldn't hide her mean ways as she planned my name ruining with careful skill. But here's what Vivian didn't think about. Army smarts training doesn't go away when you take off the uniform. While she was playing social media games, I was playing chess. And I remembered something my grandpa once told me. When leaders lie, the truth is always in the papers they hope you'll never find. I drove 200 miles to the state old files in the capital, spending my last $47 on gas and parking. Those dusty basement files held treasures more valuable than Vivian's whole jewelry box, original 1892 land papers, my grandpa's Purple Heart Awards, and the big proof showing my land was never late on taxes. Every payment listed and filed, every deal recorded and stamped. The tax payments, Vivian said, never happened. They'd been moved to the wrong account through a handy mistake. One number different. During my divorce, my lawyer had warned me about this exact trick. How bad officials move payments to make fake late fees, then grab the land cheap. He'd said landowners have rights to get it back even after fake sales, and Army people get extra protection under country law. I just never thought I'd need that info myself. The county checker who okayed this quick sale lives in a $340,000 big house at 47 Willowmere Drive. Talk about perfect timing. But here's where. Vivian's greed became her problem. Her quick sale happened exactly 30 days before the legal wait time. She was so sure of her bad ways that she couldn't even wait for her steal to be kinda legal. In her hurry to take my family stuff, she'd made papers that yelled fraud louder than a fire alarm at 3 a.m. Armed with this proof, I expected some fairness. Instead, Vivian got madder like a trapped snake. She hired a private spy to find dirt on my divorce, my Army time, anything to make my claims look bad. Local newspaper stories painted me as a troubled vet, unable to follow normal rules. The editor's wife lives at 23 Willowmere Drive. Small world, right? Then came the bothering campaign. Noise complaints every time I started my tractor before 8 a.m. Sheriff guys giving me tickets for bothering peace when I ran cows on my own land. Tickets for building without permission when I fixed my own fence. It was like living in a strict country, except the boss wore fancy yoga pants and drove a Mercedes. But Vivian's best bad idea was pure evil smart. I found worker stakes driven through my grandpa's special rose garden at 3 a.m., ruining 60-year-old old plants that couldn't be replaced. Security video showed the HOA yard guy following orders that could only come from one person. When I talked to her, Vivian's answer was super cold. Those roses were going onto community land. We have rules to keep. Standing there among the smashed flowers, breathing in the smell of broken stuff mixed with truck fuel, I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about power. Vivian liked crushing people who couldn't fight back. Too bad for her, she'd picked the wrong vet to mess with. Vivian's answer to my proof was like watching a card player bet everything with bad cards. She hired the most pricey law firm in the state capital, the kind of place where pay per hour starts at $800 and the fancy lobby makes you feel poor just walking in. Within a week, I got sued claiming I trespassed and damaged stuff, asking for $500,000 plus fees. Her big claim, I'd driven my cows across HOA land, which was actually my stolen land. The legal papers called my grandpa's best bulls dangerous animals used as weapons against nice homeowners. I had to read that line 3 times before I stopped laughing. Apparently, cows are now like attack tools in Vivian's weird world. But two can play the pricey lawyer game. I called the military legal help group, telling my story to an old Army lawyer who'd seen every trick. "Son," he said, his voice crackly like dry leaves, "this smells worse than old. Fish, let me make some calls." Those calls connected me with Sarah Chen, a land rights lawyer from the next state who knew all about HOA bad stuff. She worked for free for vets, having lost her own dad's farm to similar bad things. During our first meeting, she pulled out a thick file and said something that made my day. Most HOAs run wrong because of paper mistakes, and yours might be the same. That's when we started looking into Willowmere's business setup. What we found was great. The HOA had never properly set up with the state. They'd been acting like a fake government for 3 years, taking fees without real power, making rules they couldn't enforce. Their end was bad for Vivian. My legal spot was super strong. No insurance would cover property rights fights this big. The base of their whole neighborhood, really and in idea, belonged to the vet they'd tried to ruin. I watched Vivian's world fall through my binoculars as moving trucks showed up in driveways all over Willowmere. Real estate people came like birds to dead stuff. Home values dropped fast as word spread that insurance might not cover these houses. The sound of Vivian's fancy pen hitting the table during that quick meeting, caught on cameras she'd put in herself, became the sound of her fall. Her $1.2 million big house was now worth whatever I decided to charge for the land under it. Margaret called that evening, her teacher voice full of laughs. "Ezra, honey, Vivian's been driving around the neighborhood for 3 hours, just going in circles like a lost dog. I think she's breaking down." Tom was more straight. "That woman thought she was playing chess with a country boy? Turns out you were playing 3D chess while she was still learning checkers." The big choice was now in my hands. I could force everyone to leave all homes in Willowmere Estates, making 50 families broke to get my revenge. Or I could talk a deal that would give back my stolen land, plus enough money to make Vivian steal the most costly mistake in the area. But here's what Vivian didn't get about Army training. We're taught to win goals with least extra damage. The enemy was her, not the nice homeowners who'd been tricked by her plans. The power had changed so much that Vivian now faced money ruin or jail time. Her stolen empire was built on land she'd never really owned, and the base of her power was really mine to control. Fairness wasn't just coming. It was standing on my land wearing fight boots and carrying legal papers that would make her sorry the day she'd messed with a thornfield. When you hold big weapons, you don't just push the button. You build a plan that makes the most hit while least mess. Sarah put together a legal dream team that would make Army planners jealous. A military land rights lawyer who'd never lost a vet's case, a money checker who could follow bad cash through more layers than a big cake, and a land expert whose price guesses had held up in top court. Our planning room was my grandpa's old study, maps and papers covering every spot like an Army mission. The smell of old leather and coffee mixed with the fun of coming win as we planned our 3-step fight. Show the truth, talk a deal, and if needed, full force. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, our money checker, had followed every stolen dollar with careful skill. "Vivian's taken $340,000 over 4 years, she said, spreading money charts across the wood table. Pool care, yard, contracts, safety work that was never done. She's been running a one-person bad group dressed as neighborhood help. The proof pile was super strong. Original underwrites, papers from 1963. Careful check of the fake tax papers showing different ink and print dates. HOA money records showing a pattern of self-paying that would make bad guys blush. Video proof of wrong land changes, all timed and real. But our secret tool was Margaret, who'd become a surprise super spy. Her Wednesday card game included Vivian's closest friends, and old ladies share more secrets than spies after 3 drinks. Through Margaret's info network, We learned about Vivian's Swiss bank with exactly $2.3 million, the amount she'd paid for my stolen property. Tom had set up something great, a vet support group from 4 areas, all coming to see fairness happen. These weren't fake soldiers. These were fight vets, Purple Heart winners, men and women who'd bled for the rules that Vivian had stepped on. The sound of their bikes and trucks would say that America still protects those who've protected her. Our media plan was careful. I'd learned mind fight in the Army, and public fights follow the same rules as real battles. We made press packs showing the difference between my grandpa's hero service and Vivian's steal of vet land. Social media with the family graveyard behind bad lines. Nameless tips to news. Hunters about bad stuff in local government. Sarah had ready many deal ideas from full wind to fair middle. We'll offer them 3 choices, she explained, her voice full of sureness like holding great cards. Give back all stolen land plus money hurt, buy underwrites at fair price, or face full move-out and jail chase. The insurance find was our mind fight best. Home insurance doesn't. Cover land rights fights. Title insurance groups were already saying no to defend the bad spot of owning homes on someone else's land. Most people would lose everything if forced to move their bases. During our last plan talk, we found something that made win even better. The Nature Checkers dirt test showed that HOA building had dirtied the lake with bad water from wrong drains. Vivian's build broke nature rules, giving us country power and possible jail that could add years to her time. Margaret's spy work in Vivian's group gave our last info win. Vivian was planning to run to Switzerland if the legal case went bad. Her run plan included selling stuff, moving money away, and vanishing before jail charges. She'd thought wrong about how fast country cops move when stolen army land is in it. The neighborhood move was getting big. Margaret's People Revolt had got names from 38 of 50 asking for Vivian's quick kick from the board. Tom's callback paper had more than needed by 15 names. Local news was checking after getting our nameless money papers, and the state top lawyer office had started a trick check. As I sat in Grandpa's chair that last evening, around legal papers that would fix my family's honor, I felt his being in the room. The dog tags on his picture seemed to catch the light, reminding me that late fairness isn't always no fairness. Sometimes it's perfect fairness. Tomorrow, Vivian would learn why you never steal from a vet's family. The fight machine was ready, loaded, and pointed at her bad empire. Time to pull and watch it all fall. Worry makes people dangerous, and Vivian was sinking in it. When legal fight failed, she turned to breaking stuff with no sneaky way. My water well, which had given clear water for 3 generations, suddenly got a mystery crack that emptied it overnight. The fixed guess, $12,000. The worker who hit it with his machine, listed as doing regular work for Ashworth Aesthetics. But Vivian was just starting. Nameless reports filled the area nature office, saying my cow work was dirtying the clean lake with army chemicals. The funny part was super thick. The woman whose wrong building had really dirtied the water was blaming me for nature crimes. Health checkers came with boards and bad moods, testing, dirt that came back cleaner than a doctor's room. Her mind fight got worse to ruining my name. Rumors spread through town like fast fire about my dangerous sad moments and angry bursts against nice neighbors. The local food place owner, whose house loan happened to be from Vivian's bank, suddenly wouldn't serve me. The tool store worker gave me weird looks like I might blow up any second. It was like living in a small town where everyone thought you were a time bomb. Then came the buy-off try that proved Vivian had totally lost it. She cornered me in the court parking lot, her Mercedes running like an escape car, and offered me $500,000 cash to move somewhere better for a vet with your problems. The way she said it made me feel gross, like I was broken stuff that needed to be put away from normal people. Think about it, soldier, she said, her voice full of fake care. Vets with hurt need quiet places. Neighborhood life might be too much for someone like you. She really suggested I'd be happier in some alone cabin where my moments wouldn't scare regular folks. What she didn't know was that I'd been recording every talk since our first meet. Her buy-off try, with hidden threats about making my life hard, was caught in clear sound that would make law folks happy. But Vivian saved her best for last. Pro breakers, and I mean real pros, not kids with paint, carefully ruined my edge fence on a Tuesday night when I was at the vet hospital for a normal check. They cut the wire with careful skill, making holes big enough for my cows to get out onto the busy road. At 3:47 a.m., I got the call every rancher hates. One of my grandpa's special cows had been hit by a big truck, dying right away on Route 42. The money loss was bad, but the heart hurt was worse. That cow came from the first group Grandpa built after the war. Vivian's. Answer was as quick as it was sick. She called the sheriff before the cow was even cold, saying I was running a dangerous animal place that risks neighborhood safety. Local news teams came like birds, filming my dead cow while she gave talks about careless vets who put nice families in danger. The morning paper title made me super mad. Troubled vet's carelessness causes road crash. The story painted me as a shaky ex-soldier whose bad fence care almost killed a truck driver. No talk of the pro-breaking. Every word was a nail in her legal box. That's when FBI agent Rodriguez stepped up, his federal mark catching the lights. Vivian Ashworth, you're under arrest for wire trick, group bad, taking money, and breaking the Service Members Help Act. The center blew up like a game-win cheer. Cameras flashed as Vivian's perfect calm finally broke. She yelled about bad plots and thankless neighbors while Agent Rodriguez read her rights with pro-calm. "This is chasing," she screamed, fighting the hand. "Locks. I built this place. I protected home prices. These people should thank me." Sheriff Mitchell stepped up with his own paper. "Ma'am, you're also under arrest for group bad, money cleaning, and about 15 other charges we'll talk downtown." The sound of hand locks clicking was sweeter than church bells on Sunday. As they led Vivian away in chains, her fancy shoes echoing on the floor, the vet stood straight in quiet respect, not for her, but for fairness done. Tom called from the back, "That's how we handle America's enemies, folks." The standing cheers lasted 3 full minutes. Outside, the vet group's bike engines started loud, their wind circle echoing through Willowmire like freedom's thunder. Fairness moved fast and hard. Vivian got 5 years in country jail, plus $2.1 million to pay back. Every stolen penny counted and returned with extra. The county checker who'd helped the trick lost his pay, served 2 years, and was forever stopped from public work. Watching these bad folks face real results felt better than holiday morning after a long army time. Within 6 months, my family's 1,500 acres were fully back to legal owning. The new HOA board, led by Margaret as head and Tom as moneykeeper, worked with clear ways that would make government jealous, monthly money reports, open books, and a rule change needing. All board okay for any spend over $500, no more mean bosses, no more secret deals, just neighbors helping neighbors live quietly. The top rights talk became a model for fair dealing. Instead of making 50 families broke for my revenge want, I sold the underrights at 20% below fair price, $8.2 million over 10 years with no extra. Call it a vet's cheap for people tricked by bad guys. The homeowners group now really helps homeowners instead of making bored folks rich. Personal getting better came in surprise ways. Built my new ranch house on the hill, looking over our family graveyard where I could see my grandpa's stone every morning and evening. The rose garden was replanted with old kinds that filled the air with the same sweet smell I remembered from kid visits. Those roses had lived through one war. They sure lived through one bad. HOA head. The neighborhood change was more than anyone thought. Margaret's leading brought smart and kind to HOA work. Tom set up monthly vet help groups that helped old soldiers handle land rights before they became legal messes. Our library talks grew to the whole state, teaching people how to protect from town bad and HOA hurt. Local paper editor Patricia Caney won a state news award for her Czech series on HOA Bad, proving small-town reporting can change lives when news folks choose truth over friends. Her stories led to new rules needing HOA money checks and bad history looks for board runners. But the best part of our win was the Thornfield Vets Help Fund, set with $500,000 from the deal money. This helps kids of sent service folks through school, making sure military families never choose between serving country and kids' future. In 5 years, we've helped 47 students, including 3 who've gone to Army schools and 2 who became vets' rights lawyers. Our yearly money raise party brings the whole neighborhood together at the Fixed Ranch, where fight vets and neighborhood folks share food and trade stories under the same stars my grandpa once watched. Margaret sets up quiet sales of local art, while Tom leads walks of the memory garden we made for all area vets. Even old Willowmire people who first didn't like me now give lots to honor their neighbors who've served. The legal example from my case became must-read in law schools across the country. And Sarah Chen now goes around teaching land rights talks at vets groups. The Thornfield Rule protects military families from greedy local governments and bad HOAs, making sure no vet comes home from sin to find their family stuff stolen. Personal happy found me when I least thought. I married Janet Morrison, the library worker who'd helped check those key land papers in the early days of our fight. We took in 2 kids whose Marine dad died in far fight, giving them the steady home and family history that every military kid needs. Our ranch works as both a cow business and a rest place where vets find peace among people who get their gives. The phone. Call came last Tuesday, a Marine sergeant from far state whose city was trying to take his family farm through wrong take power. "Sir, I heard what you did in Willowmere," he said, his voice with the same worry I'd felt 3 years ago. "Could you help me fight these bad guys?" Looking across my wall of thank you letters from vets across the country, Purple Heart winners, sad families, and fight survivors who'd got back their stolen land using our legal plan. I felt my grandpa's proud smile warming the room. "Son," I told him, "pack your legal papers and get ready for war. Fairness isn't done yet." The sound of kids laughing in the fixed rose garden came through my window, mixing with the soft tune of Grandpa's wind chimes. Some fights end with give up. Others end with wins so full that the enemy's loss becomes everyone's freedom. This is what happens when David doesn't just beat Goliath. He teaches every other David how to use a slingshot. Drop a comment about your worst HOA bad dream. Let's show these small, mean folks together. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories of little guys who fought back and won. Thank you for tuning in to HOA Stories, where neighbors stand up against HOA meanies and good comes knocking. If you like this story, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more HOA tales and real life neighborhood drama each week. No check into who cut those wires, just another tale about a broken vet who couldn't handle normal duties. Meanwhile, Margaret's card game info showed Vivian's big final plan. She was filing for quick money protection to save her own stuff while moving her big house to a fake company in Far Islands. The woman who'd spent 4 years stealing from her neighbors was now saying money trouble because of my silly lawsuits. The smell of machine oil from my broken farm tools mixed with the stink of Vivian's worry as she played her last moves. Security cameras caught masked people damaging machines, cutting, stop lines on my tractor, and even poisoning my grandpa's memory oak tree with strong weed killer. But every breaking act only made our case stronger. Sarah was writing down everything, building a bad group case that would send Vivian to big jail for years. The FBI Money Crimes Group had already stopped her Swiss accounts based on proof we'd given. Standing beside my grandpa's poisoned oak tree, watching its old leaves turn brown and fall, I realized Vivian had made a deadly mistake. She'd gone from land stealing to try-kill. Those cut stop lines could have killed me. Her worry had changed her from a fancy bad guy to someone who belongs in top lockup. The sound of breaking. Glass rang through the night as another hit damaged my safety lights, But this time I was ready. Fairness was coming, and it wore fight boots. Vivian's worry reached crazy levels when she saw money protection wouldn't save her. Country cops had stopped her FAR accounts faster than she could say FAR islands, and her try to move stuff looked like beginner work compared to real money bad guys. So she played the only card left, full name ruin through made-up proof. The setup was evil in its easy way. She hired a fake actor, a guy who looked enough like me to trick cameras, to make trouble at a bar on a busy Friday night. This fake me started fights, threatened people, and yelled about hurting HOA folks before walking out. Within hours, changed camera video was all over social media showing a dangerous vet making bad threats. But her best frame job was when she put proof in my truck during a normal traffic stop. The sheriff helper, whose daughter went to private school on a nameless gift from Ashworth Aesthetics, found an open drink bottle under my seat during a random check. Suddenly, I'm facing drunk driving charges even though I was totally not drinking and had people who could say where I was all day. The stay-away order she filed next was a made-up story that would make a writer jealous. According to Vivian's sworn words, I had threatened her with army harm and showed smart fight knowledge that is a quick risk to neighborhood safety. She claimed I told in detail how a fight vet could stop many targets before cops come. Total made up. But it worked. The judge made the stay-away cover the whole Willowmere area, basically banning me from half my own area. I couldn't even drive past the entrance without risk of jail. That's when our counter-info work showed Vivian's final run plan. Margaret's card club had beaten the spies. Apparently, drinks and talk make the best place for getting secret info from loose talkers. Vivian was planning to end the HOA fully, sell all left stuff, and vanish to Switzerland before jail charges. Her time plan was fast. Move the left neighborhood money to her own accounts, say the HOA voted to end because of ongoing legal bother, and get on a one-way flight to a far place within 72 hours. She'd already bought the ticket using a card linked to the pool care fund. But while Vivian was planning her big run, we were setting the perfect trap. Sarah had worked with country law, folks to time everything right. The FBI money crimes check would end in arrest papers given exactly 1 hour before Vivian's planned leave. Her Swiss accounts were already stopped, her stuff under country take orders, and her travel paper marked for World Watch. The media plan was getting to its peak. Our nameless tips had started a full check series in the state paper about HOA bad stuff and vet land stealing. The difference was perfect. War hero's family graveyard, ruined by mean neighborhood boss. Public thoughts had changed so much that Vivian couldn't show her face in town without mean looks. Tom's vet group had grown way more than we thought. Word had spread through Army networks across 4 states about a fellow soldier whose family history was under attack. Fight vets. Purple Heart winners. Sad families. They were coming to stand and see as fairness was done. The sound of their bikes would say that America still protects those who've given for her. The neighborhood fight reached big point when Vivian made her last worry move. She offered to sell back 400 acres of my stolen land for $1.2 million, exactly what she'd paid for all 800 acres. This nice middle for neighborhood peace needed me to drop all jail charges and money fights while letting her keep half my family stuff. Her threat was as weak as it was empty. Take this deal, or I'll burn down the neighborhood center before I let you ruin everything I've built. The woman who'd spent years scaring her neighbors was now threatening fire to avoid results. But Margaret gave the info that locked Vivian's end. During their last card game, with 3 drinks, Vivian had admitted to making the fake tax papers herself. She'd bragged about how easy it was to fool dumb government workers and make fake late fees. Margaret had recorded the whole admission on her phone, catching every bad detail in clear sound. The trap was set for tomorrow's neighborhood meeting. Vivian thought she was talking from strength, planning to give her final must-do before vanishing forever. She had no idea that FBI agents were already ready, that her runways were watched, and that her own admission was about to be played before 200 watchers. The sound of car doors closing rang through the night as the vet group started coming early, setting up around the neighborhood center like securing a fight base. Tomorrow, Vivian would learn that when you steal from a vet's family, fairness doesn't just knock. It kicks down the door. The neighborhood center parking lot looked like an army mission at 6 p.m. sharp. Third bikes and trucks formed a careful edge, their American flag stickers catching the evening light like fight flags. Fight vets in leather. Coats stood straight, making an honor guard that would make a national graveyard proud. These weren't fake soldiers. These were men and women who'd bled for the rules that Vivian had stepped on. Inside, the tightness was thick enough to cut with a knife. 100 daddies. People packed every seat with local news teams setting cameras like covering a big debate. County Sheriff Mitchell put his helpers at every door. Officially for crowd help, but really to stop a certain someone from leaving early. Vivian came late in style in her white Mercedes with her $800 per hour lawyer, whose bag probably costs more than most people's monthly pay. She walked through, the crowd like a queen talking to poor folks, her fancy clothes and perfect face a big difference to the working people she'd been scaring for years. "Ladies and gentlemen," she started, her voice like a trained leader that sounds real but feels scratchy. "I've called this meeting to fix an unlucky mix-up with our neighbor, Mr. Thornfield. Despite his Army service, which we all like, certain legal hard stuff needs grown-up watch. The looking down was so thick you could taste it. Here was a woman who'd stolen from her own neighbors, taken neighborhood money and done country crimes, teaching a fight vet about grown-up ways. I'm ready to offer a nice deal." She kept going, pulling out a ready paper. "Mr. Thornfield can buy back 400 acres of the argued land for $1.2 million a day. Big cheap. That shows our neighborhood's thanks for vets. In trade, all legal stuff will stop, and we can go forward nicely." That's when I stood up, and the room got quiet except for the soft sound of leather moving as 30 vets sat straighter. "Vivian," I said, my voice with the calm power that comes from facing real bad guys in real fights. "I like the offer, but before we talk money, let's talk owning." I nodded to Sarah, who turned on the screen with show skill. The original 1963 under rights papers filled the screen in clear view, complete with my grandpa's name and the county worker's official mark. "These papers prove that I own the under rights below every big house in Willowmere Estates," I said. "That means every base, every bottom room, every waste system sits on land that legally belongs to me." The gasps from the crowd sounded like air leaving the room. Land seller Patricia Wells, whose own house sat on my land, whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for the back to hear. "The current fair price for buying these under rights is $47 million, I kept going, watching Vivian's face lose color faster than her bank. "Or all 50 homes can be moved at a guest cost of $15 million. Vivian's lawyer was quickly packing his bag, probably thinking how fast he could get away from this legal mess. The sound of fancy leather closing rang through the quiet. But I wasn't done. Since we're talking land owning, let's also talk stealing. Margaret stood up like a court watcher, her phone shining and her shaky hand. "I have a recording of Vivian admitting to making fake tax papers and stealing vet land. Would you like to hear it?" The sound was super clear. Vivian's drink-loose voice bragging about how easy it was to fool dumb government workers and make fake tax lates.